Good evening, good morning, good evening, wherever, whenever. Welcome. Tonight we are getting into Seership, Guide to Soulsight and the Magic Mirror and How to Use It by Paschal Beverly Randolph. And I know where we left off, and we're about midway through right now. We're on page 69, and I'm all jump back into it. The man whose experiences are wholly confined to things of the practical everyday life is a mere shell floating on the sea, totally ignorant of the amazing wealths lying scattered beneath the surface, and piled up in mountains on the ocean floors. For there are more real worlds under this outside life of ours than human brain can number. Dream life, so wonderful, vivid, oftentimes strangely prophetic, is but one of these, and there is a real state even behind that life of dreams, and we reach its mystic borders by the mesmeric roads while we gaze into its very depths by the mysterious lens I am here writing about. There is no accident, no chance, only such seem to be our outer senses. But when the veil pall that hangs over the inner senses is removed, we at once glance down the mystic lanes and are in the street of chances. Hence, the future as the present, and the past is a fact. And all their events are now. Wherefore, it is not difficult to foretell what shall be, if we but get beneath the veil and glance along the floors of the world. God's numbers never change. They are perpetual fixedness, scannable by whoever has the sciences. Ooh, dang. Dude. Sir David Brewster, albeit he attempts to pervert the account to other ends, says that, quote, it can't scarcely be doubted that a concave mirror was the principal instrument by which the heathen gods, or disembodied heroes, were made to appear in the ancient temples. Dot, dot, dot. Esculapius often exhibited himself to his worshippers of Tarsus and the temple of Enguinum in Sicily was celebrated as the place where the goddesses or disembodied heroines exhibited themselves to mortals. End quote. Iamblichus informs us that the ancient magicians caused the gods to appear among the vapors disengaged from fire, and the conjurer, Maximus, terrified his audience by making the statue of Hecate laugh. Damascius, quoted in A Bad Cause by Salverte, says, quote, in a manifestation, the cause of which, that is, a magic mirror, ought not to be revealed, dot, dot, dot. There appeared on the wall of the temple a mass of light, which at first seemed to be very remote. It transformed itself, in coming nearer, into a face evidently divine and supernatural, of a severe aspect, but mixed with gentleness and extremely beautiful. End quote. According to the institution of a mysterious religion, the Alexandrians honored it as Osiris and Adonis. Hey, Rose. Hey, Sass. Welcome in, everyone. Cool beans. The Emperor Basil of Macedonia, inconsolable at the loss of his son, went to Theodore Santabaron, celebrated for his miracles, who exhibited to him the image of his beloved son, magnificently dressed and mounted upon a superb charger. The youth rushed toward his father, threw himself into his arms, and disappeared. This aerial image was no trick, for even now optics cannot do anything of that sort, but it unquestionably was produced in or by and through a magic mirror. The plea, in this case, of imposture is absurd. Tanya, welcome in. Awesome-o. Very cool. Good evening and morning. Mr. Roscoe, in his life of uh, in his life of Benvenuto Cellini or Cellini, Benvenuto Cellini gives a thrilling account of that famous artist's adventure with specters raised by magical means, and what is more to the purpose, neither Roscoe, Brewster, or Smith pretend to claim that they, the specters, were mere figments of fantasy. Or fancy, mere figments of fancy. On the contrary, all three admit the thing was real. True, they attempt to stave off the supernatural conclusion, but do it very lamely indeed, for it is pretended by them that the magic lantern, playing upon volumes of smoke, accounts for the whole terrific affair, totally forgetful of the fact that Cellini's experience, or Cellini, maybe Cellini, that Cellini's experience took place in the middle of the 16th century, whereas Kircher did not invent that instrument till 100 years later. The paragraph in italics on page 154 of Smith's edition of Brewster's Magic is too puerile and contemptible to merit notice. Such hard-headed people would fain make us believe that all ghostly appearances are phasms. Phas phasmas? Phasmas. It means like phantoms, right? Appearances are, let's look it up. I see where we are. Phasmas. Phasmas. All right. Apparition, phantom. New Latin, phasma. I wonder if that's how you say it. Like phantom, probably. Phasma. Cool. Okay. Very good. Yeah, there's a lot of these older words in these older books. It's really cool. Get to learn so much more. Yeah, I remember everything I read. Okay. I bet this is still too hot, but I'm excited to drink it. Oh, yeah. It's hot. Okay. Would fain make us believe that all ghostly appearances are phasmas, even that of Jesus after his death, and that all that is knowable, they know. When, aside from the multitudinous impostures, there are enough real spiritual visitations and visions to base the hopes of a million worlds upon. In no case, whether the objectives whether the objectives viewed are physical or mental, as in dreams, etc., is it the eye which sees, but the faculty of consciousness within the eye, brain, soul of the observer. And as man is a spiritual being, it follows that he has a series of inner senses underlying and subtending his external ones, and which series of internal senses are adapted to his natural born spiritual nature. And all that he requires is a bridge to help him span the thick matter and reach the spiritual ether. This the mirror enables many, though not all, to do. The condition of death is mental activity and physical quiescence. If the activity can be had without the quiescence of death or greatest aim, a new avenue or means of knowing is attained. This is all the mesmerist and the mirrorist claim to achieve, and both have proved and made good that claim in numberless instances. The spiritual, therefore, the substantial reality of all being, is above and beyond the other senses, and it is only either by his rising to it through the floors of the outer world beneath which he sinks, or by its descent to him, that he can cognize the actualities of that superior world. In either case, if his motive be good, he ascends toward God. If evil, then his account must be rendered for his act. When a man, his organs of perception, his intelligent principle, is suspended from its matter bounded exercise, he can enter the domain of the real, through the gates of the inner senses, catch glimpses of the forward world, and therefore cannot fail of actual outside show, experience, and being. In the interior state, he throws open the windows of his soul and lets in the sunshine and glory of the spaces. Hence, all true seers can but depreciate the prostitution of clairvoyance, true, and therefore very rare, to immoral uses, or that of the mirrors to mere fortune telling, and such like ends. For although unquestionably these things have been, are, and can be done with rare and marvelous success and efficiency by their means, yet it is like causing a first class racehorse to draw a butcher's cart, or conning rich attire to plow the land. Conning, I always thought it was dawning. Conning rich attire to plow the land. Hence, the caution and advice, simply because the mirror is the gate to another world, another field, another department of the inside world. Says Hardgrave Jenkins. Nope. Says Hardgrave Jennings on of the master Rosicrucians of England, a man whose writings on fire rank him high among the true genii of the world of letters, and one from whom I have largely quoted in this monograph, a man who deservedly occupies a lofty place in the esteem and affection of every true brother of the arch fraternity of Rosicrucians, in his last great work concerning the curious things of the outside world. Quote, the phantasmagoria of real things are revealed to us only when we escape the outer world. End quote. In other words, when we elude by mental swiftness these castrian, no, it's cast iron. When we elude by mental swiftness these cast iron, outward seeming senses of ours, and when we take a god bath in the rivers that flow by our souls, there is a light of slumberous beauty beneath this world light of ours, and the spaces are thronged with aerial intelligences unseen by material man. They to him wait in darkness, but his darkness is theirs and our effulgent light, because it illuminates the waste of what to him is mystery. That realm is no shadow country, no phantom land. It is a country without sound and noise. The fullness of melody echoes through its gorgeous halls, and the wingless cherubim are there in effulgent majesty, to guard its mystic splendors. Hence, none but true, brave, feeling souls can wholly enter therein. It is a regal domain where our underlife is topmost. Gautama Buddha, pause. Is that it? Gautama Buddha, seer of all seers of the olden time, and equaled only now, if ever, tried to stupid man, these sublime mysteries to reveal. And in that land he has waited 6,000 years for the advent of understanders, just as that other king, the lonely man of Nazareth and Bethlehem, waited 1,900 years to find a score of Christians. They are found. It is only in deep absorption that the soul can outwit the body. Thus, when a man is tempted to waste his manhood in the lap of lust, his senses ever urge him to the deed, albeit he knows it is pollution and death which invite him to the horrid banquet, death-charged and dreadful. that says 40. It says see Euless by Dr. P.B. Randolph. Oh my gosh, I have Euless. It's sitting right over here. Okay, but the very instant he sets his soul to gaze upon the temptress, he sees her hollow heart and realizes the danger to his soul and body. And the sight and knowledge frees him, that moment, from his thrall. His boiling blood recedes to its proper channels, his tempestuous passion subsides, and though weak and exhausted, he still remains a man, which is never the case when lust extinguishes its fires in the arms of wanton passion. Lo, here, what a truth. Hey, Mystics, welcome in. Awesome. As in the telescope, the landscape only is possible, not at either end among the mistakes of the unadjusted glasses, but in the exact focus where the sight point is caught. Even so, we Rosicrucians hold that supernatural beings only are possible, visible at that cross point where the angelic contraction and the magic dilation intersect. In short, man being himself as the telescope, it is only at the magico-magnetic focus at which the spirit world and the essential worlds are to be spied into. Under the domain of lust, hatred, avarice, wrong, no man can enter either. Therefore, virtue is its own reward. Divine and supernatural illumination is the only road to absolute truth. The Platonic philosophy of vision is that it is the view of objects really existing in interior light. 41. The identical teachings of the fraternity of the present day, the identical teachings of the present day, Platonic philosophy, as already pointed out, formed part of the fundamental teachings of the fraternities Rosé Crucis, instituted in or about 1616. 1616. So 41 was the interior light. Oh my gosh, I need liquid, please. So I'm going to start that paragraph again. The Platonic philosophy of vision is that it is the view of objects really existing in interior light, which assume form, not according to arbitrary laws, but according to the state of the mind. This light unites with exterior light in the eye. It is thus drawn into a sensuous of imaginative activity. But when the outward light is separated, it reposes in its own serene atmosphere. It is then in this state of interior repose that all really inspired and correct visions occur. It is the same light so often spoken of in ancient books and modern experiences. It is the light revealed to Piminder, Zoroaster, and the sages of the East. Pymander. Balls, I can't remember. It is Bowman's divine vision or contemplation, Molino's spiritual guide, and the inner life of all true men, few, and women, many. It is the foundation fire. That's one word. It is the foundation fire upon which all things, whatever, are builded. That's what it says, builded. Ambushed everywhere, bursting out when least expected, slumbering for ages, yet suddenly illuminated in inebriate's brain, illuminated, yet suddenly illuminating an inebriate's brain, so that he shall see the moral snakes and larvae of his perversion assume physical proportion and magnitude to fight him back to temperance, virtue, and his forsaken God. No amount of merely intellectual quickness, sharpness, or solidity will avail the searcher for the unseen. Only a meek spirit, attention, perseverance, perseverance, faith, open the doors which lead to the vastitudes. The world we live in is full of the pattering of ghostly feet and the music of spiritual singers. It is not difficult to hear them. Where's the 42? Oh, 42 was at the end of few men and women many. 42. It is this light which the masters seek to bring into manifestation within the acolyte, and all the training and drills taught the neophyte have this end in view. Some of the first exercises prepare the body, others the mind, and finally there in this drill, which is the door leaning into the interior realm of light and sight. So I think I stopped mid-sentence. No amount of merely intellectual quickness, sharpness, or solidity will avail the searcher for the unseen. Only a meek spirit, attention, perseverance, faith open the doors which lead to the vastitudes. The world we live in is full of the pattering of ghostly feet and the magic of spiritual singers. It is not difficult to hear them. I may not hear right concerning the methods of invocation, because fools will laugh. And that goes to 43. Because the method is so simple in itself, yet leads to such wondrous results, if faithfully, trustfully, and consistently practiced. It is forever the little, the seemingly insignificant things which lead to great results, and that is why the great mass miss that which is really worthwhile in life, and which elevates observant ones to the status of the gods. The Rosicrucian rooms were opened in 1860 and continued open until late in 1872, when fire destroyed them. Headquarters of the fraternity were then moved to Toledo, Ohio. A formal organization has been in continuous activity, and at no time has authority been conveyed to anyone not trained within the order. Toledo. Such a boring place. Man, I went to college. Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, Ohio is big in these societies. You see it all over the architecture in the towns all around me. You see it everywhere. I actually dated a guy that was a part of a lodge for a while. He was a really nice dude. So, because fools will laugh, and the fraternity of the mystical elsewhere would grieve threat. Oh, I wonder if it's supposed to be threat. It's Thereat. Threat. And yet it is certain that perfumes, odors, and vapors of magnetic character have, in ages past, and may again in the ages yet to be, proved immense aids to the true seer. Okay, so would grieve Theret. Let's find out. Shit. And would grieve Theret. Therit. Archaic, formal, at a place. Oh, it's thereat. Ah, shit. That's so funny when I...
Rat. Thereat.
Got it. Okay. Oops. Oh, son of a gun. And the fraternity of the mystical everywhere would grieve thereat. And yet it is certain that perfumes, odors, and vapors of magnetic character have, in ages past, and may again in the ages yet to be, proved immense aids to the true seer. There are hundreds who visited the Rosicrucian rooms in Boylston, St. Boston, who marveled greatly at hearing no raps or ticks, and seeing no clouds pass over the splendid mirror there owned and used, until perfumes were scattered and incense burned, whereupon thousands of patterings rained upon the silver tripod, and glory clouds, in presence of and seen by scores, floated over the black sea face of the peerless mirror. The belief of the supernatural is the only escape out of the coldest infidelity, and the word magic everywhere is but another term for magnetic, which, being understood, at once remove all its mysteries from the region of the black arts, so called, into the beautiful realms of ethereal science. Not every person can see in a mirror of any sort whatever, and hundreds of those who can see in them are unable to procure a genuine instrument. To such I recommend a very cheap and beautiful substitute, and in the form of a concaved Claude Lorraine mirror, easily made. Mold a lamp of clay, a foot square, slightly convex, dry and bake it hard, and smooth its surface as perfectly as possible. Then press pasteboard on it till all is smooth and even. Now make another exactly to match it, concave. Between these two, place a sheet of fine plate glass. Bake it till it conforms to the required shape. Make two alike. And that goes to 44. Manufacturers of plate glass are usually willing to accept orders for convex plates, and mirrors can then be easily made. We have seen some very beautiful handmade ones which answered every purpose and every test. The potency of the mirror will depend almost entirely on the mood and the love which possessed the maker during the time occupied in the task. Where's that number? 44. There it is. Between these two, cemented 1/4 inch apart, pour black ink till full. Oh, hey. Seal the aperture left for that purpose, and you have a very good substitute for a magnetic mirror. Else take a glass saucer filled half full of black ink, and you will have as good a mirror as Lane saw so successfully worked in Egypt. A crystal glass of pure water has often served a good purpose to the same end, and, in fact, there are numberless forms of substitutes for the genuine mirror, some of which are very good, but of course not equal to even an ordinary triune glass. The rules and laws governing these substitutes are precisely the same as those of genuine glasses. It will never, okay, quote, it will never do to urge that these things lie beyond us. A fruitful source of the spiritual lowness of the modern time is the resolute averting of the face from deep thoughts, which of course give trouble. That all the lifting of the mind, that all the sublimest speculation, that all the occupancy of the thoughts by these intensely noble and refining investigations, that all these high ideas and great ideas about God's providence and his purposes in the world end, when pushed to answer, just where they began, that is, where they first opened, and in no wise attaining to define result. This is, of course, as true as that men cannot help their speculations and their wonder. But we unconsciously pass higher and become something better. In such thoughts, we teach ourselves to place the world at a distance. We grow spiritualized, and the very amount of our pleasures multiplies because it purifies. The fault of the time is haste, is conceit, is a willful disregard of the higher truths, is a protesting speed to be back again amidst the business of the world, a cowardly acknowledgement of incapacity to cope with the contemplation of man's possible higher destiny. a hypocritical putting forward of reliance upon an acknowledgement of a beneficent superintending providence in the abstract. The time is so unenthusiastic, everything is so questioned for its utilities, and all is so toned down to commonplace, that it is the voice of exclamation and alarm only that can arouse. To obtain a hearing, we must call aloud. Bam! Hey, buddy! Hey, thank you. I'm so pumped for our shows this week. And I'm so glad that both of our shows are from in the evening hours. It's so cool. Yeah, it's going to be great. We are involving ourselves in too many deductions. We are thickening ourselves in our mechanic dreams too much. We are posing ourselves with systems. We are lying, or we are living the heart out of us. Wow, what a sentence. We are making very clockwork of the oh, straight up off. We are making very clockwork of the grand intensities of nature. Formalism is becoming as a second nature to us, and our methods of living is the translation of the lifelong charities into into pounds and pence. Even our very fine cases, as we may so perhaps to curiously figure it, are growing vastly too fine, vastly too wonderful, and too elaborately wrought for us. Why not be of rougher material, and of mere painted outside, of bulk and not sentiment, of the coarse, solid components, of wood and of varnish, instead of making up of such exquisite vermilion blood, and of flesh, of the marble like whiteness in the female examples of us? That was a question. Instead of making up of such exquisite vermilion blood and flesh of the marble like whiteness in the female examples of us, there will be something in superb colors like you. Why, when we are so laboriously casting ourselves as into ingots for the devil's golden Hades, should we make all this hypocritical fuss about moral improvement? Surely we might as well become stumps, blocks, turn into dead, hard wood, as mean and unhandsome as Lapland idols, when all our foolish pity and all our human sympathies are being most convincingly argued and demonstrated out of us, and when the very affections are strangled. Oh, think me not too direct and plain spoken, my dear, contended, but perhaps too compliant reader, like irregular children, those which are only sure to bring their parents into discredit, children of no town, since they belong not to a town where money abounds, owning not love, since they cannot claim affinity with the love of banknotes. We have forgotten the inside of the cup, of the burnishing of the exterior. Nor, after all, do we live half our life. Our triumph in the common conveniences of life, spite of our vaunting of our perfection in them, go no great lengths. We can forge an anchor, but we cannot cook a dinner. We can spin thousands of yards of calico in 2 or 3 revolutions of a wheel, but we, personally, curve so indifferently that we scarcely make a bow. The banks groan with our gold, and yet we have not the knowledge profitably, by which we here mean toward our soul's advantage, to expend a single dollar. In the universal Plutus conversion, our heads, so to speak, are growing into gold, while our hearts are fast becoming but as the merest blown paper bag inside of us. Right? The balance. Is this Dutch? Is this Dutch-like life of toys and trifles right? Is this all of nature and all of us? Oh, this wilderness of flowers and of the external forests, let the mind for a moment glance at that inexpressible microcosm, far from the vulgar disturbances of the pavements, and out of sight of the glare of the city, in which are the thin, spiry stalks, in whose invisibility minute veins course up the bright green blood. What a neglected treasury is this world of ours, in which lie undreamed of riches for the seeking. Why abandon them all, desireless, to the inviting angels who stand sentinels upon a paradise upon which we might enter? Oh, stretching above us, all ye vast fields, blue as the very ultimate floor of convinity, con, convin, convit, oh wow, convinti. It's Covintiy. Let's find out. Convinti. Ooh, did you know that I love that song, buddy? Do you know that? Are you joking me? I don't think you're here anymore. That's like my favorite. It's such a good song, Holy Majoli. Always said that would be my wedding song. It's so good. Dunk, dunk, down. Yeah, dude. When that foghorn blows. Dunk, 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 down. I don't know. Okay. I wanna rock your gypsy song. Such a good song, right? Totally got me off track. Okay, 3655, it's a. I'm not going to read for a huge amount tonight, but I really did want to get some more in on this book. Yeah, because there's so many books I want to get into still. But this one's so good. Oh, I was going to look up a word. Shoot. Which word was it? Bum, 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 bum. Balls. That really sidetracked me. Balls, dude. I'm really lost. Desireless. I remember reading that. Oh, here it is. Covinti. I wonder if that's a typo. Floor of Covinity. What does Covinity mean? Is that a word? Doesn't seem to be. Covinity. Blue as the very ultimate floor of Covinity, throbbing with world, as through the intensity of an all exultant, all even violently God declarant life. Oh, all ye thousand visible wonders that scatter spells as of the fruitful magic through all this most invisible populous universe, this universe, whether of man's mind or of the larger microcosm. Pronounce, ye that know, whether evil, meanness, or resting to false purpose, whether aught of bad should profane a theatre of grandeur so immense? It is not man himself. Show ought to be the arch glory, as the recognition of it. But as he would seem so desirous of making himself the blot upon his excellence, the lie to all this overpowering sublimity, overpowering sublimity. I gotta look that one up. I don't know whatever that word is. Sublimity. The quality or state of being sublime. Hey, that makes a whole lot of sense. Sublimity. Okay. This overpowering sublimity, he is not himself. To speak to him the language which he may best understand. The bankrupt in this myriad of banks, whence thought can and virtue might draw their inexhaustible supplies. I don't understand what I just read. Is he not himself, to speak to him the language which he may best understand? The bankrupt in this myriad of bankers, whence thought can and virtue might draw their inexhaustible supplies? Were gold ribs the very frameworks of the world, and were they torn out of their mighty sockets, were even the genius of its riches shown, barless and central, throned at the very heart of this so detestably, because so for its material glory, worshipped globe, would the sight or the possession match against the immortal chance? Were the spirit of the material world exposed in a single revelation in all his blasting splendors, would, O thou miserably merchandising heart, thou seller of thy seat amidst the star-girt saints, thou wretched contemner of the chance offended. Oh, balls. I'm really struggling on this one. Okay. Thou seller of thy seat amidst the star-girt saints, thou wretched condemner of the chance offered thee, for thy salvation by thy God, would all this compensate for the averting for one moment from thee of the face of the rulers of thine immortal destinies? Confess, thou mad and besotted man, avouch, thou less defiant than hypocritical rebel to God's heavenly care of thee. Would thy very hugest heap of drops match in value with the tiniest flower, into whose thirsty cup the heaven-missioned spirit poured his eternal dew, christening to immortality? Boastest thou, if thy world, and of thy dignity, in thy science, out of it? Art. What is art to the reticulation of a fungus? What is it to the fine-spun tracery of the meanest moss? Labor. That is thy labor, that thou shouldest pride thyself upon it, when the whole frame of stars be nightly moved? Pride. Why, what a shallow thing is this pride, when to the lily of the field, even Dolaman, in all his glory, has been declared not equal. What be thy stars and ribbons, thy rings and spots, when than all the snake hath more splendid? What be thy braveries and all thine ingenious adornment, when the summer insect, less than thee, thy painted child of dirt, surpasseth thee at them? What be thy money, when, with whatever assurance thou reliest upon it, it may not spot for thee, as gold nails, thy final melancholy, and for thy body, long lasting house, hoarder for that day of enjoyment which shall never come to thee, in thy last earthly house, all thy tenfold fences of precious metal useless, art thou contend to put up with most ignoble lead. Thou leavest all thy wealth, all thy goods and chattels, and for aught thou knowest, thou forfeitest thy very soul, and at that, perhaps, terribly sudden summons, thou standst not even solitary, for it is there for is there not thy misspent life thee to confront? Thou hast bargained away thine heritage, and hast spent the price, and now, as that as which to be and now, as that as which to be it hath been thy greatest boast, a good man of business, thou must, in rendering up thyself, perform thine own half of the obligations. If the real law be that life to come be alone purchasable by good deeds, as any lawyer will tell thee, friend, if thou consultest him, thou hast miscalculated the law. In thine own interest's sake, then, better a single virtuous act than a retire, reiteration of money victories. And that goes to 45. In the final analysis, only that which helps the race a step forward is of actual value. It is not immortality to store up a mountain of gold. It is, however, the act of immortalization to see that this money is used in the alleviation of those who suffer and are in pain, to educate the ignorant so that they may free themselves from bondage, to tear the veil of ignorance and superstition from the mind of man, to lead all who seek to the center of light. If any have millions, they collected their store from the many. If they leave these millions to friends and relatives, they but weaken they but weaken them. If they see to it that this wealth is left to those who will use it wisely for the good of the many, in the founding of institutions of real learning, the establishment of Santoria for the removal of mental blindness, then they will have accomplished real things and helped to immortalize the soul. Every effort of the secret schools is toward this end, and though these schools may not dictate to their acolytes, they indicate the right path to follow. Better for thee the prayer of the poor man and the blindness and the blessings of the fatherless and of the widow than a whole shipload of plate, an avenue of bowing menials, and a whole court of flatterers. Remember that the reckoning with thee must come. Disencumber yourself in time. Perhaps the very conveyances of thy lands may not be contained in that box, in which there will be found, at last, but too much room for the possessor himself. Art thou wise, even in the world's sense? Art thou sagacious as to the relative meanings of debtor and creator? Sagacious. I might have looked that up recently. Let's try. Sagacious. However, showing keen mental discernment and good judgment. I wonder, like a Sagittarius? Saga.
Sagacious.
Sagacious. Having or showing keen mental discernment and good judgment. Shrewd. They were sagacious enough to avoid any outright confrontation. Cool. Oh no. I'm somewhere over here up top, right? Art thou sagacious as to the relative meanings of debtor and creditor? When all the world attesteth that these things which I have written concerning inner worlds and the methods of admission thereto are true, shalt thou then persevere in so hopeless a chance of phantoms, of fine false things which flee from thee? Shalt thou, with this knowledge, strain for an imagined good, which even in thine own hand melteth? Shall thou, with all these results which experience avoucheth as imminent, still sleep the sleep of fools? Still, with no alarm, fold the accustomed hands and acquiesce because we see all the world doing so likewise? Shalt thou waste thy precious hours in the pursuit of those anticipated fine things which, for all thy knowledge to the contrary, art to prove as daggers to thee? If missing thee, perhaps to prove nets to the feet to trip up, or pits of selfishness or of mistake into which they shall fall, to those whom thou leavest thine accumulation, that for which thou canst have no farther use, keep it as tenaciously as thou mightest want. Those that thou fanciest best beloved may but inherit direct ruin in hiring thy riches, in airing thy riches. That which might have been as a gold mosaic pavement for thee to walk over in thy lifetime may, in the sinking under thee, in thy final disappearance out of the slippery world, convert as into a devil trap to thy children. Love not money, then other than wisely, and not too well. Grow back into the simplicity of thy childhood. Time hastens from thee. Thou, really, haste not that half century which thou proposest to live. Live at once in leading a new life. Prate not thy vanity, but get thyself to thy knees, thou foolish man, and confess thyself a very child, I more than a child, in the true wisdom. Recall thy mind to better things than thy wretched traffic, in which by far too much thou imitatest the muckworm. Make much of the holy affections which, like flowers, heaven hath planted in the mind of thee. If thou, like an ox, wouldst not tread them so daily out with thy brutish feet, and of thy children. Each of thine innocent little children contradicteth thee. Thine own youth is that which the most completely exposeth thy false policy. Think that thou hast but the poorest portion of life in thy present life, thy widest margin of profit, and thy very mound of bonds and of banknotes alike shall prove but clogs, ay, but as tons of dead weight, in the hour when unexpected affliction shall start up before thee, or in that time that thou hast thy real summons out of the world, or, or in that time that thou hast thy real summons out of this world. Chains are wealth, ay, chains of heaviest link, hell forged, but self wound in one's unconsciousness of acquisition, of which, for its escape, in the last hour the angels have, perhaps, to free the struggling soul. The blessing of the orphan and of the widow, of the lately downtrodden, of but the now rescued, shall be the wings upon which, in triumph out of the clay, shalt thou mount to the face of God. Then to thy heart shall penetrate, and to thine ears shall reach that blessed assurance, welcoming thee within the doors of that eternal places, even as thou didst it to the meanest of these thine earthly brethren, hast thou done it unto me. The roads of heaven, out of this mere miserable transitory man's world, this world of disputes and difficulties, of the struggle and of the eagerness to live, but of the compelled and confused haste when death arrests, this place of weariness and discomfort, of in the real reasons of things, very frequently, the high placed low, and of the low placed high, the ways leading beyond those clouds of heaven toward which thou gazest, thou longing man, have not those solid barriers of divination between body and spirit which thou sometimes art taught to believe. Look out into the universe, important as thou thinkest thine own globe, and imagine what innumerable mansions thy Father's house hath. But how many ways may the hope, which may be all of thee, travel into the celestial spaces? By how many natural and ethereal wickets the blessed may, according to their natures, enter? Are not the stars as bright doors, opening into the glory? God called up from dreams a man into the vestibule of heaven, saying, Come thou hither, and see the glory of my house. And to the servants that stood around his throne he said, Take him and undress him from his robes and flesh, cleanse his vision, and put a new breath into his nostrils. Arm him with sail broad wings for flight. Only touch not with any chance his human heart, the heart, the heart that weeps and trembles. It was done, and with a mighty angel for his guide, the man stood ready for his infinite voyage, and from the terraces of heaven, without sound or farewell, at once they wheeled away into endless space. Sometimes with the solemn flight of angel wing they fled through zaras of darkness, through wildernesses of death that divide the worlds of life. Sometimes they swept over frontiers that were quickened under prophetic motions towards a life not yet realized. Then, from a distance that is counted only in heaven, light dawned for a time through a sleepy film. By unutterable pace, the light swept to them, they by unutterable pace to the light. In a moment, the rushing of the planets was upon them. In a moment, the blazing of suns was around them. Then came eternities of twilight that revealed, but were not revealed. To the right hand and to the left towered mighty constellations, that by self repetitions, and by answers from afar, that by counterpositions, that by mysterious combinations, built up triumphal gates, whose architraves, whose archwaves, horizontal, upright, rested, rose, at altitudes by spans that seemed ghostly from in, infinitude. Without measures were the architraves, ar- archi- architraves, architraves. Without measures were the architraves, past number were the archways, beyond memory the gates. Within were stairs that scaled the eternities above, that descended to the eternities below. Above was below was above, to the man stripped of gravitating body. Depth was swallowed up in height insurmountable. Height was swallowed up in depth unfathomable. Suddenly, as thus they rode from infinite to infinite, suddenly as thus they tilted over abysmal worlds, a mighty cry arose that systems more mysterious, worlds more billowy, other heights and other depths were dawning, were nearing, were at hand. Then the man sighed, stopped, shuddered, and wept. His overladen heart uttered itself in tears, and he said, Angel, I will go no farther, for the spirit of man aches under this infinity. Insufferable is the glory of God's house. Let me lie down in the grave, that I may find rest from the persecutions of the infinite. For end, I see, there is none. And from all the listening stars that shone around issued one choral chant. Even so it is, angel, thou knowest that it is. And there is none that ever yet we heard of. And is there none? The angel solemnly demanded. Ah, is this the sorrow that kills you? But no voice answered, that he might answer himself. Then the angel threw up his glorious hands to the heaven of heaven, saying, End is there none to the universe of God? Lo, also, there is no beginning. If the bond of the whole if the bond of the whole visible world be the universal magnetism, then the immortal, unparticled spirit, of which this magnetism be the shadow, may be that ineffable potentiality in which the real religion shall be alone possible. In this manner shall sainthood be true of all time. In this new world of the old world shall miracle be possible. In this manner out of the familiar shall come the wonderful. In this angelic medium shall heaven be, and alone be. In my book, I have sought to cast loose the chains which men think they have of this dense, solid, soulless world of ours, ignoring spirit out of it as a thing of no account, rejecting miracle because it will not submit to the machinery which produces the world, but which is, of course, incompetent to explain the mastership over itself, which machinery dissolves wholly at the frontier that separates the great outside unknown world from the little inside known world. Mine is not so much an attempt to restore the superstitions its dispossessed pedestal. Let's try again after I get a sip. Ooh, yes, finally, drinkable. Mine is not so much an attempt to restore to superstition its dispossessed pedestal as it is to replace the supernatural upon its abdicated throne. Yeah, man. And if, after listening for so long a time to the mighty eloquence of St. Paul, when heaping inference on inference and proof on proof concerning the religion of the Redeemer, of which he was then so triumphant a champion, Agrippa breaks up his charmed reverie, in which he himself touches on confine of conviction, with the astonished exclamation, Paul, Paul, thou almost persuadest me to be a Christian. May we not hope that now, to the reflecting reader, such light of probability shall shine from our arguments as that he, too, shall almost see that the supernatural may be possible about him even in his own familiar hours and in his own modern and present day? In the work now in the reader's hand, the author proposed to himself these certain objects. First, to the best of his power, to establish the possibility of the supernatural. This science defies. Next, to prove the present existence of the supernatural. This faith rejects. Lastly, to show that all religion is only possible, not in the thinking that we believe, which means miracle per se, but in the actually believing. For mankind may be divided in the subject of belief in divine matters, or rather in the crediting of anything out of this world, into three great sections. First, into those who believe nothing. Secondly, into those who would believe if they could. And lastly, into those who think that they believe. In this last large class are included, as to believe impossible things is impossible, all the conscientious and good of all the various orders. People can only believe according to the best of their power, and their common sense stops short of the conviction of miracle, in which, as I contend, real religion can alone lie. It will only be thoughts which arise out of what the author has said that will set the reader musing. He will see that there lie other things beyond, farther reference to which, in a work of this nature, indeed in any work, would be improper. Those who will accept, as clear illumination out of the fogs and the delusions of this world, are those who, by intelligence and by knowledge, are fitted to recognize. Ordinary readers, of whom, out of curiosity and the natural vivacity of mind, the author feels assured he will have many, will accept the same pages as most amusing matter, certain things in which will simulate the profoundest thoughts in those who have the higher gift. For in reading, there are two views. To the guardians of the more recondite and secret philosophical knowledge of whom, in the societies, abroad and at home, there are a greater number, even in these days, than the uninitiated might suppose. It will be sufficient to observe that in no part of his book, though every reader will find, it is presumed abundance of entertainment in it is their approach by the author to disclosures which in any mind might be considered too little guarded. Respecting the real meaning and purpose of the extraordinary philosophy of the Rosicrucians, some slender portion of which this book contains, as also do all of Dr. P.B. Randolph's works, indeed they are, from first to last, wholly Rosicrucian. There is the profoundest general ignorance. All that is supposed of them is that they were a mighty sect, whose acquirements and indeed practice were involved in so much mystery that the comprehension of them was scarcely possible. And this famous secret society has been not only the problem, but the amusement and converted into the romance of modern times, on the principle, usually a very true one, that all of the unknown must, therefore, be imposing. The story of these Kabbalists has served the turn of those who sought to impress. If modern writers have made use of their history, it has been to wake up the materials into romance. The name of the Rosicrucians has been a word of might with charlatans. And that goes to 46. Most of these organizations base their teachings either on neo theosophy or on a popularized form of new thought. It is needless there to mention that they contain not a shred of true Rosicrucian philosophy or training and are never, cannot be, presided over by anyone who has ever seen an acolyte in the authentic fraternity. They spring up in a night, gather crowds to themselves within a short time because they offer a short and rosy path to initiation. Oh, initiateship. And being unable to fulfill their promises, as quickly die and are forgotten, leaving those who foolishly followed them in a worse state than they were before. They have been the means of exciting with the dealers of fiction. So I'm going to read that. Wait. The name of the Rosicrucians has been a word of might with charlatans. They have been the means of exciting with the dealers in fiction. The character of the mystic fraternity, its designs and objects, have been a potent charm with all those who thought that they possessed, through it, a power of stimulating curiosity. Members of the Society of the Rosy Cross have been introduced as heroes in novels, have mysteriously fitted as the deus ex machina through tales of the imagination. From want of knowledge of what they were, they have been supposed everything. They have been wondered at, laughed at, feared, set down as magicians, and as exempted from the common lot of the children of men. Fanaticism, dreaming, imposture, and, in the milder form of accusation, self-delusion, all this has been assumed of them. From the curious forms in which they choose to invest their knowledge, because of the singular fables which they choose to invest their knowledge. Hey, from the curious forms, and then from the singular fables, because of the singular fables which they elected as the medium in which their secrets should be hidden. They have been looked upon as quite of another race, as scarcely men, but they have been much mistaken. Dang. I think I'm going to stop right here. I don't know if there's really a good stopping spot ever in this book. But dang, this is so fascinating. It's so juicy. So yeah, I'll be back sooner than later. I'm just going to call it and finish my tea up, veg a little bit before sleep. And man, this weekend was amazing. I hope you had wonderful weekends, and I hope you have wonderful coming weeks. Yeah, the light in that moon is growing, and so are we. So I love you. I thank you. And I will see you next time. Sweet dreams. Mwah. Good night.